Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. Today's question is about how can we endure the kind of big strain of writing a PhD thesis. This is not a small task. This is kind of mammoth task, which will take away a lot of our time, a lot of our energies, mental and physical, and we need to be prepared before we start this journey. And I will ask a few questions now, and then later we'll try to unravel them to give you some tips, suggestions, and some guidance for you to embark on this journey with the hope that you will get to the end of it and you won't feel a lot of pain. So let's start with some of the problem question. First is, why do you need to write a PhD thesis? And the second question is, how many of the PhD theses you have read before you have embarked on writing your own PhD thesis? That's another question. Then another kind of realization you should have is that your PhD thesis, like also many master theses, are these days searchable by others. So other people can get hold of your work. And your name is attached to the work you've done. So you better make sure that you do a decent work, because it will be there forever. Then, we have already understood by now that this process is tedious, it's a bit complex, it will take a lot of time and energy. How do we make of it something as enjoyable as possible? How do we do it? This is the important question we're going to answer in the part that comes after this. So please hang on and make sure that you see most of this video, because there are a lot of tips throughout it that you can benefit from. Why you don't get this book from Amazon at a promotional price? You will find plenty of more information, tips, suggestions how to make your whole PhD project quite enjoyable. Let's have a look at the size of it. This is my own PhD thesis. It's quite a thick book, about 287 pages. There are 2 appendices, and I have written it in a few months, and I enjoyed most of it, actually. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at later to a chapter to see the structure of the chapter, which is more or less the same structure used for each other chapter. And where did I get inspired from? But before then, I want to tell you that even giving suggestions to others about how to write PhD thesis is quite a complex matter. Therefore, I decided to have a number of videos. This one is kind of general video, and then we will have 3 more video which are more specific. It will take some example from my own experience, because I supervised a lot of PhD students, and therefore will take 3 of this example. The first example is that of, let's say, a lady which I call Katie. She is extremely organized. She understands from the very beginning that organization in the PhD project, it's paramount in order to finish in the best possible way. And she does it in few months, like I did my PhD thesis in few months. Then there is a guy which is called Malcolm, and it's kind of organized, but he wastes a lot of energy, time in activities and things that are not really essential for his work. And he can manage to write his thesis in about 8 months, which is kind of a bit long, but it's all right. And then there is another guy, Sam, Yeah, Sam is quite disorganized. He does things and he doesn't know where he puts it. And his lab is a bit of a mess. And he mingles private things with work stuff, and therefore, this guy really struggled. Spent the best of a year and a half in writing his thesis, and he has to take time from his new job in order to finish off his thesis. And we're going to look at all of these three cases in 3 separate videos following this. Now we kind of trying to understand what are the kind of habits that we need to get into when we start writing a PhD thesis. Habits are not necessarily bad. Some of them can be quite good. For example, the habit of getting up in the morning and do some physical exercise before having breakfast and then going to work is extremely good, because he puts our body in motion, and we face the outside world in a much better condition than those that don't do any exercise at all. So habits can be quite good. And during the PhD thesis, the writing up of the PhD thesis, some of these habits which may feel a bit of a strain, remember that are not going to be there forever. We may take 3, 4, 5 months to write a PhD thesis comfortably, and if we have to endure some kind of fixed schedule, then it's not going to be there forever. So we can tolerate it much better than if it were something that we had to do it for a long time, years. One of the first habits you need to master is to understand how much can you write every day. So the first few weeks is about discovering that. Can I write 2 pages? Can I write 4 pages? Can I write 3 pages? Can I write 1 page? Trying to understand how much can you actually write. Getting things off your brain, and the information you have recorded, kind of making sense of it is not that easy. So trying to get a quota, for instance, aim for 3 pages per day. Write 3 pages per day of your thesis. If you feel comfortable in doing it, that's great. Do it and try to stick to it. Maybe don't write, every single day. Take 1 day per week completely off this writing schedule, so our mind can refresh a little bit, and then we would start again for the next week. Other thing is to understand when you need to write what you have to write. So during the day, each one of us has, ups and downs, also in connection with the time of the day it is, or, the interaction with people we have. So choose the best time you have during the day for writing up your thesis, because there you need a lot of, mental energy to do it. So you better make sure that you dedicate to it the best possible time. Maybe the time when, it's relatively quiet around. The third thing is to avoid, if possible, disturbances and distractions. So when I have to do something really important, I can arrive to the point where I close all of the door. I tell other people if I'm leaving without, I need some quiet time. Just don't come knocking at the door. Don't send messages. Trying to disconnect yourself from all the things that are happening around you, because during those few hours you need very good quality time. Trying to avoid disturbances and distractions from anything that can happen around. Then I tend to do this. I tend to segment my work into big chunks. And when I have finished a chunk of it, before I jump on the next one, I give myself a break. Maybe, a couple of days break. Do something completely different. And remember to reward yourself for what you have already done. If that chunk is a chapter you have written, and it has taken you, let's say, 2.5 weeks, to write it, then, take a little break and give yourself a gift for what you have done. Maybe there is nobody else around that is so involved with your work, that understands how important it is to validate you. So do some self-validation. Give yourself some gift for what you have achieved. Okay? Then another suggestion, and the fifth suggestion, it's your thesis shouldn't be information dumping, despite it's quite large. It doesn't mean that I have put in my thesis every single thing that I learned, every single paper that I read has been going. No, about 40% of papers and books and website that I have visited, read, went into my thesis. Not everything. So it's not information dumping. There is no limit how many pages you can write, but this doesn't mean that you can write 500 pages. So trying to be concise. And the sixth suggestion I can make is that your thesis should be treated as a legacy. You are going to leave behind a legacy. So don't try to leave behind the burden you have felt when during the months you have endured some pain to write it. Leave a legacy. Okay? Good. Now we got to the part where we look at a chapter of my PhD thesis and how it's structured. Now the interesting part has come. What you will see on the screen is the layout of a chapter from my own PhD thesis. The structure of the chapter is the same throughout the thesis. I have started each chapter with 1 or 2 pages about the motivation, why I was going to do this work, what motivated me, why it was important for me to do this work, what competitive edge may give me, by doing this kind of work. Then the second part of the chapter will be about the background of the problem. So I will look at the issue I was tackling and trying to brainstorm a little bit about the different possibility to tackle this issue. How will I do it? What benefit will bring? Was it doable to do this sort of experiment or not? Then the third part of the chapter was about the experimental technique. I was going to illustrate the experimental technique and the setup that I may have come up with, which was kind of novel, and giving the reader from earlier on in the chapter an understanding of how important what I was doing was in order to gain the hoped results I wanted to get. So I'm kind of giving the reader a story. I'm taking the reader through my journey on each chapter, and like this, then I direct the reader into the next section, which is about my experimental results. I present and comment on them on each chapter. Maybe this will take 10, 15 pages overall, depending on how many results I got. And after that, I close the chapter like it was a kind of a mini thesis, the chapter, with my recommendation. Because when you do a piece of work, it's almost sure you will never give the final word on this piece of work. So you better also, leave some doors open for other people to investigate. Maybe investigate what you haven't been able to do it because you didn't have time, you didn't have the equipment, you didn't have the budget, So give some hints on where other people can take on your work and deliver better things. At the end of each chapter, as you see from the structure, there is a reference section. So I put at the end of each chapter the reference I read and I cited, for that chapter. This is a structure which I have seen in one of the 5 PhD theses which I read at the very beginning of my PhD. During the first 6 months, I have got hold of 5 PhD theses, one of which was not that good, but 4 were pretty good, and one of this was outstanding. And from one of these, I even took the layout of the thesis. I took it a little bit, to suit my needs, but I got the inspiration from there. So the more you actually read, and the more you have in terms of results that you have done, the better quality of result you have done, the less drained you will feel during this writing up of your thesis, because you have a lot of things to say, and therefore you can pick up your shoes. You don't have to invent much. It's going to flow quite easily if you are organized also. Then in terms of the writing up experience, it's for sure draining. So if you have on top of this draining experience of writing up, you have also time issue. You have arrived to the very end of your PhD, you have no time left. Then the experience of writing up can be quite daunting. And you will feel quite a lot of pain, and we will give some tips in other videos on how to approach even this. Now, writing the PhD thesis does not start at the real writing up of the thesis. Writing your PhD thesis actually starts when you start your PhD. Why? Well, because you are accumulating knowledge, you're accumulating information, you're picking up the brain of others around you, of the people that you read the work of. That's where your PhD thesis starts being written. And if you write also some summaries of papers and you read key papers, thesis, half of the work it's almost done before you actually start writing your PhD thesis. So please keep this in mind. I have read several hundreds, probably in excess of 800, 900 papers in my PhD thesis. Also, during my PhD, I also read a lot of PhD theses. 5 at the beginning, plus many others during my PhD, and I visited a lot of websites that were talking about things. I had an enormous amount of information to cite, and yet I cited probably less than 40% of what I have read, because it's not information dumping. I need to put only the things that I believe are key for the people that are going to read my thesis and want to probably replicate it. In this last part, we're going to give you some general tips, and we're going to throw them at random. Many of these have worked quite well with me, and some have stuck since as well. So for the writing up effort, because it's quite a long shot, so trying to get into a rather healthy lifestyle. And this means having decent quality food at the right time during the day, and also drinks. And remember, this is only a few months, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then it will be over. So it's something that you can manage. Avoid acid drinks and acid food. Acid drinks is, coffee is quite acid. So, maybe have one coffee and then the rest have tea. Tea gives you a lot of boost too. And actually the boost of tea lasts longer than that one of coffee, which is more intense but short-lived. And substitute it with tea or, with other non-sugary drinks, and watery non-sugary drinks. In terms of food, try to avoid, if you can, tomato and hard cheese. These two are really, really acid, so will upset your stomach, your digestion. So try to avoid them during this time. You can substitute hard cheese with soft cheese, and with things like mozzarella and the like. Then try to make several backups of your file during your PhD thesis. You will be shuffling things around, changing, If you lose some parts, it will be quite painful. During my PhD thesis, I lost one picture I was making, all, by a Word program. And, it was less than a day of work, but I lost it, most of it. And, it was painful to redo it. So trying to make a lot of backups of regular backups of your work, and also keep it in different places, Nowadays you can keep it also, on the cloud, and therefore try to get in this habit to have regular backups, and when you've done it, so you can go back to it. Then avoid, drinking alcohol if you can. Maybe over weekends you can, but alcohol will affect the way you think and your mood as well. Exercise instead quite regularly, maybe 3-4 times a week. Go for to a gym, light exercise, don't pump iron. Also, if you run, better brisk walking than running. It's as effective, but it doesn't drain a lot of energy from you, brisk walking, as those instead running. Try to get into a routine as quickly as possible. Maybe a few weeks you try different things, and then you find out what works for you and get into that routine. It will help you a great deal. Be asleep before 11 p.m. Why? Because it's shown scientifically that who is asleep between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning has the most restoring sleep of them all. So trying to get into this habit too, to be asleep before 11, and you will feel refreshed in the morning, even if you're done, long day of work. And the last thing I want to say is good luck with your endeavors, and don't miss out the next videos. We're going to make another 3, which are specific to different kind of people and how they work, and we will release one of this video at the beginning of each month. So please check out again and subscribe to our channel, and leave some comments so we can produce all the good content videos that are actually helpful for people like you.